Hey, welcome everyone. This is week 22 of 52 weeks of leadership. And we're bringing you the Tuesday edition, which of course is a function of the fact that we're just coming off of a holiday weekend. Hope everyone had an enjoyable Memorial Day and enjoyable weekend from wherever part of the globe you might be coming in from, because we have people not just from Buffalo and Western New York attending 52 weeks. So just a couple of things before we go ahead and get started. Want to thank Geico, our sponsor for 52 weeks of leadership, who have been able to make this speaker series possible and being able to keep it free and accessible for everyone. Another announcement is, as you've been hearing, if you've been attending past editions of 52 weeks of leadership, the Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness is having its annual leadership conference, Changing the Way in Which We Lead, which is occurring this week on June 3rd. And there is still opportunity to be able to register for the conference if you haven't already done that. Daniel Pink, world-renowned leadership author and speaker, is the featured presenter, along with a great lineup of other speakers for the conference. Encourage you, if you haven't signed up, to already do that. And that leads us to, we have a special guest this week, which I'm really happy to be able to introduce, and that is President Satish Tripathi. Of course, he needs no introduction, especially for those of us here at UB. He has been the president at UB since 2011, which actually happens to be when I started here at UB. And in fact, just as a kind of a quick aside, when I was visiting UB and interviewing and visiting campus, I met with President Tripathi, who at the time was Provost Tripathi, and his vision for the direction for UB in terms of continuing to build on excellent academic programs and building the reputation of the university and its research and scholarly impact. It sold me, and it made me want to come to UB and be part of the great things that have been achieved here at UB, really through President Tripathi's outstanding leadership. And that's the topic that he's going to be speaking on today, which is about achieving top 25 through excellence and innovation. I'll turn it over to President Tripathi in just a moment. As you with prior sessions, if you do have questions, I encourage you to put those into the chat, because once the president is done, we'll have some time for some Q&A, and I'll help to moderate that. So I'll be monitoring the chat while the president is speaking. So questions are definitely encouraged, and please put those into the chat. So without further ado, President Tripathi, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here with you and to be part of the School of Management's leadership series. I really want to thank Paul for inviting me and to speak to you about the university leadership. Of course, Paul and I both, as Paul mentioned, also came from institution, University of Maryland. So I still remember talking to Paul when he came for interview, and we talked about College Park and what was going on there. Now, what I want to talk to you today about UB's top 25 ambition. So how it is fueling UB's top 25 ambition, and indeed how university leadership can translate to enterprises outside the sphere of higher education. And let me change this here. While our own field of scholarship expertise and my particularly scholarship is in computer science and statistics, I'm very familiar with a slogan common to the world of business. Namely, I always hear, if you're not growing, you're dying. In the realm of the higher education, we too appreciate the importance of growth. And the growth takes multiple forms in the higher education. It takes a form of enrollment growth. It takes form of really federally sponsored research expenditure, our academic programs that we offer to our students, and the reward and awards and recognition that our faculty is receiving. So really, we want to be a campus where we have enrollment growth, but we also have the growth in our impact. As we look at the institution, are we doing the right kind of research? Are people supporting us to do that research? Do they care about the research? Are we offering the cutting edge academic programs to our students? All of those things are really important in terms of growth. Now, while the growth is important, we as a university are primarily focused on impact. Let me tell you what I mean by impact. So at the University at Buffalo, we create and transmit knowledge in order to have a powerful, lasting, and positive impact on the individuals, communities, and our UB. This is our mission. And when we talk in terms of institutional ambition, we always frame the conversation within the context of our mission: educational, research excellence, engagement with our local and global communities. Those are the three pillars that the higher education, research higher education is defined. When it comes to advancing our mission-driven priorities, that conversation is focused on impact. And we have ascribed a quantifiable marker to help us determine whether we are enhancing our impact on these communities. The question is, how would we measure? And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So our marker is our ambition to situate UB among the top 25 public research universities in the nation within the next decade. We know that our ambition has to be more than a slogan. Advancing a large, complex organization as UB requires much more than a rallying cry. However, before I delve deeper into that point, I think it would be helpful to share with you some details about UB's history and evolution, as well as my own evolution as a leader in higher education. So, as many of you know, UB was founded in 1846, and actually we are celebrating 175th anniversary of our university this year. UB was founded as a small medical school training physicians for the city of Buffalo. We became part of the State University of New York in 1962. And since 1989, we have been a member of the prestigious Association of American Universities, that's AAU. Collectively, there are about 64 public and private universities in US that are part of AAU, and the AAU institutions award more than half of the US doctoral degrees and conduct more than 60% of all federally funded research universities. So really, if you think about it, this is a prestigious group. It's focused on research, but also the quality of education. So in terms of the UB scope, scale and impact, UB is the largest, most comprehensive public research university in the state. We have about a little more than 32,000 students, and that includes about 1,600 students on our Singapore campus. And the students come from all 50 states and 106 countries. We have close to 6,000 full-time employees, as you see in the chart here, and more than 2,500 total faculty. If you look at our total annual research expenditure, and that actually includes the expenditure from the externally funded and internally funded sources, that's $424 million. Economic impact, and this study is actually old. I'm sure it's more than $1.7 billion now. More than 280,000 alumni in 150 countries, and we are among the top 30 in international enrollment at UB. So you can see that we really are a global institution with high research profile and a great economic impact where we live. So, I want to say a little bit about my own trajectory, although I really don't like to talk about it, but just to give you a context of where I come from. I never thought that I will be a president of a major research university. To be sure, I was always interested in education. In fact, I come from a long line of educators, and we sometimes joke that education is the family business. But as a young student, my hope was one day to become a high school teacher. I attended college, earned my degrees, multiple degrees, and finally got my PhD in computer science, not far away from here, about 90 miles north, University of Toronto. I spent 19 years at University of Maryland as a faculty, as a department chair, and 7 years in UC Riverside, University of California, Riverside, and came here in 2004. As Paul said, I was here as a provost, overseeing the academic across the university, and I just celebrated my 10th, completion of my 10th year as UB's president. So this is kind of the background in terms of my education, where I've been, and my field of study and so on. And throughout my field of study, and throughout my career, I always have been really attracted to the numbers. I always really thought about, sometimes I talked in numbers actually. So that was really something that always attracted me. But I realized the numbers alone don't tell the whole story. And actually, for us to make an impact, we do need to bring together and build bridges across the disciplines. As a faculty member, as a department chair, as a dean, as a provost, now as a president, you can see I've gone through all these steps to get here. I always had the opportunity to engage with increasingly broader group of scholars, faculty, students, all working together. And this experience has taught a very important lesson that has shaped my leadership style, and namely, the truly big ideas and important discoveries take place at the intersection of many fields. The nature does not create problems for a given discipline. It doesn't recognize our disciplines. So to solve the problems, we have to involve many minds working together and many points of view approaching the same problem from different angles. And this is the idea that I have really following, and this has been the cornerstone of my personal academic philosophy. It is at the root of much of what our university has achieved. And I hope UB to achieve by working collaboratively with my colleagues as we move further. And this is what makes UB, I would say, truly distinctive, the paradigm of interdisciplinarity. It guides the work of our faculty scholars as they come together to solve the most pressing issues of our time. And as you'd recognize, business school, management school, and Paul and faculty are involved in multiple of these projects and multiple of these research initiatives on the campus and play an integral role. So let me return to a point I made earlier. I had said that our top 25 ambition needs to be more than a motivator to succeed. To achieve the mission-driven priorities of a large, complex institution like UB requires, and the multiple things we require. For example, we require an understanding of the complexity of the organization. It takes the genuine understanding and the genuine value of all the people who comprise the organization. It takes collaboration, and collaboration should always be thoughtful, respectful, and informed by data. It takes creativity, imagination, innovation, and a willingness to embrace challenges. And it takes thoughtful, engaged, empathic scholarship and leadership. Let me be clear, I'm not referring exclusively to leadership at the presidential level. Of course, at a university, the president defines the university's goals and destination. He or she charts the course towards that destination, always using our mission as our beacon. But thoughtful and engaged leadership of complex organization requires more than the leadership of the president. It must incorporate the thoughtful and engaged leadership of faculty, deans, vice presidents, vice provosts, and the provost. All of our university leaders help us remain focused on our defined course. Along the way, we help identify barriers that are obstructing our course and find ways to overcome them. They find opportunities that can be seized. Let's see. On the surface, it would seem as if we have these fundamentals in place. If we have these fundamentals in place, we should be all set. We know our mission, we know our destination, we know we work in harmony with our values. We have our leaders in place to help drive the process. And so we chart our course and we are off, right? If only we were that simple. We all know it is never that simple. Frequently, it can be quite daunting. We need only reflect on the past year and a half to appreciate what it is like to lead in unsettled circumstances. We have worked and continue to work in an environment in which we have had to become comfortable to the extent it can be possible with constant uncertainty. In fact, this is kind of very interesting. In life, there's no certainty anytime. In fact, in the universities, there's no certainty because there are a lot of external forces. Of course, we talked about the pandemic, but there's always uncertainty. There's uncertainties about the state budget, the uncertainties about this student enrollment, the uncertainties about the federal funding. And as university leaders, we really have to think about how do we achieve in a very uncertain environment. Of course, the uncertainty is all over the place, but I'm just talking about the university. You've got uncertainty. You can't really completely be certain. And then in that environment, you really have to give certainty to people to be able to achieve something. And that's the hardest part in my opinion. These constraints and challenges of the pandemic has really created an environment where we're always trying to figure out where we want to be, how we reach there, how do we continue to make progress in the direction. For example, we have challenges with the international students. And that's still a challenge and there's still sort of uncertainty there. We have uncertainty always, as I said, research funding, state and federal policy. So really, we got to think about just having the policy, having everybody on board and just go and do it is not enough. We have to think about the external forces that make it uncertain. And really also, you think about the major concern during pandemic, very real issue of mental and physical health of students, faculty, and staff, and members of our community. But I would like to argue that organizations that have the fundamentals in place can continue to thrive. And by fundamental, I mean in part having healthy, productive, inclusive culture, strong and empathetic leadership across institutions, and a willing embrace of institutions' mission and values by all stakeholders. And so with those fundamentals in place, how does UB achieve the top 25 ambition? What metrics will be used to evaluate our progress? This is what I talked about earlier. How do we know we are achieving going there? Let me also say a few words about what does top 25 mean, because there are multiple rankings actually, multiple rankings measuring you all the time. What we want to really do is be really truthful to our mission and vision. And those are research, education, and economic impact, or community impact, as we look at it. And if we continue to progress in that direction, the rankings that go on there, they will get us there. So, I mean, I'm not choosing one ranking here, but you just have to think about US News and World Report, that everybody uses it. But there are a lot of other things that we worry about as well, not just those parameters. So institutionally, we often think in terms of research university metrics, research growth, faculty research expenditure, basically funded, federally funded, how many PhDs we award, the number of postdocs awarded. Do people care about the research we do? Do they really use that research? And that's what is known as scholarly citation. How much research and scholarship do we do with industry? Do the faculty get national awards? Are they recognized for what they do? So allow me to touch a few of these matrices. In research, extramural funding, people basically use the NSF and NIH and some of the other federal agencies. And you can see between 2010 and 2020, we have achieved some growth in there from 167 million to 200 million. And that's actually acknowledgement to the work that our faculty and researchers do on the campus. Our citations have gone from about 93,000 to 175,000. And that's really a big jump, which shows that the research that we do, people care about. And our faculty honors and awards have almost doubled since 2012. So we have made progress in all those areas. If you think about innovation and impact that our faculty and students have created, these are really, we continue to build upon our success in research, discovery, and innovation by supporting entrepreneurship and hundreds of our industry partners within the regional economy. So in fact, since 2015, 61 startups have been formed as a result of UB faculty, student, and technology. Nearly 17,000 students have participated in experiential learning programs. And for hundreds of our students, this has led directly to landing jobs at high-tech companies once they graduate from UB. In fact, the formation of these startup companies has created nearly 1,700 I wish 70,000, but 1,700 jobs in Western New York for the last 5 years. So that's really one aspect of measuring the progress of a university. But we shouldn't forget about the student side of it. And this is what basically is used in the US News and World Report. What kind of selectivity do we have for the students? Institutional reputation, 4-year graduation rate, average class size, student to teacher ratio, the retention of the students from first to second year. All of those provide a cue to really look at the institution and see, are we providing the students the kind of education that a good institution should provide. So let me give you some numbers on that. So we, so these numbers, the 35% graduation rate in 2005 wasn't an anomaly. Most of the research institutions' 4-year graduation rate in 2005 was around that level, between 30 and 40%. People in those days were not as much concerned about the graduation rate. We actually started programs to make sure that the students graduate in 4 years. Not all of them want to graduate. They might want to have a year abroad. They might want to take a year to go do internship. So our 4-year graduation rate has gone from 35% to 61%, and actually national average for the public universities is about 35%. So we really have gone quite a bit. We also have seen that our incoming students are really diverse. Underrepresented minority students represent nearly 17% of enrollment. That's a major shift. But that's the input coming in. What about the output? What we have seen is that our students, when they graduate, they're getting the national awards. They might be recognized by the Marshall, Udall, and Truman Scholarship. These are nationally competitive awards to our students, Fulbright Awards, and also very competitive National Science Foundation Research Fellowship, mainly available to science, engineering, and social sciences. And all of those numbers have gone up substantially. In our graduate education enterprise, we have also experienced very positive outcome. Significant increase in the number of graduates, elevation in our national reputation across the graduate and the professional programs, and higher ranking in many of our graduate and professional schools. These are important, I would say, indicators. Whether they all are used in the ranking or not, but they're important from our viewpoint. But while we always consider these metrics, we also need to dive deeper to look at what is happening at the department level. And to reiterate my earlier point, achieving our institutional goals does not depend on the leadership of one. It hinges on the leadership of many. In our case, leadership spans across our 11 professional schools and the College of Arts and Sciences. Rising to the top among research universities is contingent upon the faculty we hire. The faculty hiring happens at the department level. At the department and the college level, within the leadership of the deans. Therefore, it is imperative that our faculty department chairs embrace our vision of excellence. So really, it begins in the departments, but it is also about seizing opportunities that align with your mission-driven priorities. Presidential leadership sets the tone for excellence, and that messaging must resonate throughout the institution. But ultimately, it is our faculty who conduct the groundbreaking research and scholarship, who mentor our students in the classroom, the lab, and the field. And that work is how we create greater impact in the communities we serve. Defining a destination for an institution, that is the easy work. Charting the course, that's easy work as well. But having an organization comprised of faculty, students, and staff who embrace the vision and value of the institution and our community and continuously working on their behalf, that is what we call constant work. Transformational work is always constant work and never the work for just one. And transformational work is at the heart of our 2020 Top 25 mission. Broadly speaking, we have 4 overarching goals in elevating UB into the top 25 public research universities. Specifically, we have even greater societal impact by enhancing scholarly productivity and growing UB's research portfolio, to provide students with innovative, resource-grounded educational experiences, to build upon UB's culture of equity and inclusion by further integrating inclusiveness into all aspects of the university, and to deepen our engagement in the region by strengthening partnerships to continue and to contribute to positive health outcomes and economic vitality. We know that we can achieve top 25 by moving more of our academic programs into top 25 by increasing federally funded research and by increasing faculty recognition. By multiple measures, some of which I just outlined, we know we are making an impact. We continue to move in the right direction. In one of the rankings, we are at number 34 public. In others, we might be within 30. In some, we are 39, but we are moving in the right direction. In the category of best public and private university, UB has risen 24 spots during the past decade. UB is also recognized nationally and internationally for excellence at the decanal and departmental levels, with several of the schools are ranked in top 35. We are proud of what we have achieved to date. We're very pleased with our improved graduation rates, increasing federal research expenditures, and rising rankings. But it's what these numbers indicate that truly are the source of pride, because they suggest that we are making even more profound impacts than ever before. But I want to stress that our top 25 ambition is not about pride or stature. It is about harnessing our research and scholarship to make an even greater impact in Buffalo, the state, nation, and world. And when we survey UB's trajectory to date, we see that top 25 is the next stage of our evolution. To get there will require a collective understanding and embrace of our mission and values. As we talked before, as this pandemic has taught us, it will require working collaboratively in sometimes very uncomfortable and challenging environments. And it will need to be fueled by our faculty with a strong and consistent leadership at every level, from the department chair, deans, vice presidents, provosts, and president. The dedicated and demonstrated leadership at every level of our institution is critical to this success. Again, I want to thank you for inviting me for this presentation. And Paul, I'll be happy to take any questions that you or the audience have. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, President Tripathi. That was excellent. Really enjoyed hearing those remarks. And I know everyone else probably would agree with me that there were a lot of leadership lessons and themes throughout your description of achieving top 25 at UB. And in many ways, it was a bit of a summary of the 52 weeks of leadership, a lot of different leadership themes and topics that you covered. Glad that you're willing to stick around for a couple minutes to maybe do some a quick couple follow-up questions. We do have a couple that participants had put into the chat, so maybe if it's okay, I'll start with those. So one interesting question, you talked a little bit about your background and your development as a leader, and those things speak to transitions and challenges that leaders face when they transition from one leadership role to another. Speaking about that yourself, coming to UB, as you mentioned, you came as a provost, you were in the University of California system there, and before that at University of Maryland. So coming into a leadership role as provost, you came in as a bit of an outsider, if you want to think about it that way. And then, although you were here as provost when you became president, I don't know if everyone knows that your background as the first internationally born president of UB in the history. So that's kind of another first. Can you speak a little bit about any of the challenges that you faced coming in through those types of transitions and how you address them from a leader standpoint?
Paul, you're talking about from provost to president, or all the transitions that I've gone through?
Well, both of those, but maybe if you want to talk about the one as president, from that standpoint, I know something I hear leaders talk about is how you build trust and credibility and all of those things that are important for effective influence, and maybe there are things from your own experience that you could be able to share.
Sure. So definitely for me, it's really honor and privilege to serve as the president of UB. So, and this is something as I said before, was not that I was really planning from my childhood to become a president. So really my transitions, as you look at it, have been really going to the next level and trying to do the best I could actually. So my transitions haven't been really that I've focused on getting somewhere and I'm getting there in my own career. I'm focused on the institution getting somewhere and trying to work on it. So that's the kind of progression I've had. I was lucky to be the provost here and then shifting to my current role, which means that I really had a good working relationship. I hope I had good understanding of the institution and had a lot of friends on the campus who I had worked with. And we had challenges before. Many of you who were here during 2008 to 11 or 2008 to 10 in particular, when the budget crisis was there, I worked with a lot of the people on the campus to make sure that we continue to make progress. So my challenges were not coming from outside. Being first internationally born president, as it's called in the press announcements, that hasn't been really an issue for me as such, because I really have been in higher education all my life, and in higher education in US, at least on the beyond the student life. I have been here all my life, so I really don't feel an alien, quote unquote, that word, in terms of being internationally born. Definitely, I bring a different kind of experience that, I grew up in a very small village, coming from that environment, going to the university, spending time in Canada, which is definitely a different country, and going to the higher education and learning there. And so I bring my experiences that definitely help me think in a more, hopefully, in a more diverse manner. But apart from that, really, I haven't felt that I'm any different. But being having served as department chair and dean, and not that you are the dean, I'm saying that I think dean's position is probably the most important position on the campus, because that's where the direction for the schools and that's where the faculty are working with the deans is so important. So and when I was in UC Riverside, I really was growing and establishing the school, and that gave me a lot of experience to think about how to work in an environment that's continuously changing. On a campus like this, you have to have people that you trust and people that really are working in the same direction. And I'm lucky to have leadership, senior leadership, and that includes the deans, the vice provost, and the provost and vice presidents together, and a lot of the department chairs that I know, and they are working in the same direction. So really, I would say really that it's the team effort, and establishing that team is very important. Paul, as you know, I mean, I can say whatever I want to say, but I was a faculty as well. I have, I could tell my president, no, I'm going to do this research, and you can't tell me what to do. Or I'm going to do this scholarship. So if you want really to make any difference on a large institution, it has to be bottom up with the faculty working in that direction.
Yeah, indeed. I've heard the saying, leading faculty is like herding cats.
We all have been faculty, Paul, so we know that, and we still work. so I think it might be there, but I think it's really, it's a self-selection process, and the faculty are entrepreneurs, and that's why they have joined the university. It's getting them to get excited about what is important, not only for their research, but also for the institution.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question was around how the university collaborates with entities outside of the university, whether we're talking about the business community, we're talking about kind of political government leadership, nonprofit leadership. Certainly, at least from what I see, a large part of your role as president is that outward-facing leader for the university, working with high-level leaders across, a variety of different entities. And as a public research university, that seems like that's even more important than in other type of higher education settings. Can you say just a little bit about how that has evolved, and how, as the president of the university, you look at those collaborations, external collaborations in terms of
Paul,
success?
all those constituencies that you mentioned, we also have to include our alumni.
Right.
Right. That's really such an important factor. And I always tell my alumni, the better they do, the better institution we become. Our rankings and everything is dependent on our alumni as well. So definitely, we have to, we are a state university, so we have to work with the state. We're part of SUNY, we have to work with the SUNY, right? That's part of the system. We live in a city that's third or fourth poorest city in the country. And so if we want to be a great institution, we have to make an impact locally, economically, for us to be also recognized. So that's very important. We definitely have to work with the federal, because the research funding and so on. So there are multiple constituencies. I, in fact, work with the US senators that are part of New York. We work with the governor's office. We work with the mayor's office. We work with the local elected officials, all of those. I've got a group of people who do the government affairs work, and they work with them. And we actually have to show that we are making impact where we are. We also, as you know, have Krishna RC works on our impact on the local businesses, and also we have been working with the state government to get resources so our startup companies can get initial funding as well, and we do some of that. So my job really is, I would say, before the pandemic, it was almost 50% time I was traveling. And the rest 50% of the time I was here and working from here and working with the external sort of constituencies. That is the part of president's job. That's the part where, we know that in order for us to keep improving, the philanthropy has to play a very major role. Because if you want to attract the top students, if you want to provide them the kind of environment they need to study, and your school has done a great job. If you look at the sort of basement, how you have been able to renovate there. If you look at the software and the systems that you get for people to trade and so on. I mean, all those things, and endowed chairs and scholarship for students. For us really to compete with the institution that we are competing, that part is so important. And we're lucky to be able to continue to do the sort of the Boldly Buffalo campaign, which has reached already more than $700 million. We started for 650 and we are now going towards $1 billion. That's critical as well. So that's part of, as your job, Paul, my job, to continue to talk to our friends and alumni to make sure that we have the resources. And we're not going to get all the resources from the state or from the tuition. The resources have to come from multiple sources, and that's really one of the major sources as well. And it's not just resources to get endowed, it's resources to create the environment. So people want to work inside the building, around the building, as you're doing renovation right now, around the management school. And those are very important. So definitely my job is really on all those aspects.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. I know we're running over, but if we have time for maybe just one more quick question.
Paul, I'm available. 1-2 question, what do you have?
Excellent. So here's a specific question. You were mentioning earlier about the impressive increase in terms of the 4-year graduation rate. A follow-up question on that was, has that risen also for underrepresented minority students at UB?
Paul, definitely. 2 years ago, we were in the top 3 in the country in narrowing the gap between underrepresented minorities and the rest of the population on campus. So definitely we have done a great job. There's still work to be done. It's a national issue, and that's why we're comparing nationally how we are really narrowing the gap. Yes, that is so true. We started this program when I was, I think, still a provost, the Finish in 4. That program had some sort of pushback initially on the campus, but really that has changed people's thinking. And as I said before, some people probably want to take more time. They want to do other things, but really for the most of the students, they want to graduate in 4 years. No, so the numbers are good, but we still need to, even if it's smaller gap, it's in top 3 in terms of amount of gap there, we still need to really work on that and narrow the gap.
Yeah. Great. Well, I do want to be mindful of your time and everyone's time. This has been, I think, a great session. Want to thank you, President Tripathi, for joining 52 Weeks of Leadership and sharing your vision and the leadership that goes into achieving top 25. It's been a remarkable journey, and I know we're excited on seeing it through to that goal. So thank you again. I want to thank everyone who's participated in this week's session and encourage you to be here for next week, where we'll have Jamie Falzerano. Jamie leads our Leader Corps nationally recognized leadership program. She's going to be talking about how leaders develop leaders in next week's session. And so hope everyone will tune in again next Monday. We'll be back on the Monday schedule for that session. So on behalf of Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness, wish everyone a great week, and thanks again for joining. Bye.
Bye, Paul.